As we continue building from easements and shared property rights, we now move into another critical category of non-ownership interests: licenses, adverse possession, and liens. While easements created structured, often permanent rights in land, this section focuses on situations where property use is temporary, informal, or even hostile to ownership rights. This is a natural progression in understanding property rights. Previously, we discussed how rights can be granted and transferred. Now we explore how rights can be revoked, challenged, or even lost entirely. Licenses, temporary permission to use property. A license is a verbal or written agreement that gives someone permission to use another person's property. Unlike an easement, a license does not create a long-term interest in the land and can be revoked at any time. This is one of the most important distinctions from the previous section. While easements run with the land, licenses are personal and temporary. For example, if a homeowner allows a friend to park an RV on their property, that permission is a license. The homeowner can revoke that permission at any time, and the license automatically terminates if the property is sold or if the property owner passes away. This ties directly back to risk management principles. Agents should advise clients that informal agreements can create confusion and potential disputes if not clearly defined. Risks of informal property use. Allowing others to use property without formal documentation can create unintended legal consequences. In some situations, property owners have allowed access to their land without realizing the potential risks. For example, if someone uses a property for illegal activities, the property owner may face legal complications, even if they were unaware of the activity. This reinforces a key concept from earlier sections. Documentation and control are essential in protecting ownership rights. Adverse possession, loss of ownership through inaction. Adverse possession represents one of the most serious threats to property ownership. It occurs when someone occupies another person's land for an extended period of time and may eventually claim legal ownership. This concept stands in direct contrast to licenses. A license involves permission, while adverse possession occurs without permission. Commonly referred to as squatters' rights, this situation can arise when properties are vacant, abandoned, or not properly monitored. For example, if an individual occupies unused land openly and continuously for a period defined by state law, they may be able to claim legal title to that land. This ties directly back to earlier discussions on property maintenance and oversight. Ownership requires active management. Failing to monitor property can result in loss of rights. Why adverse possession exists. Historically, adverse possession laws were created to ensure that land is actively used and maintained. The principle is simple. Land should not sit idle if someone else is willing to use it productively. While this concept may seem outdated, it remains legally enforceable and continues to impact property owners today. This reinforces the importance of vigilance. Even though adverse possession is rare, it is a real legal risk that cannot be ignored. Liens, financial claims against property. A lien is a monetary claim placed against real property to secure a debt or obligation. This connects directly back to earlier discussions on foreclosure. Liens are often the underlying reason foreclosure occurs, as they represent unpaid debts secured by the property. Common examples of liens include mortgages, tax liens, judgment liens, and mechanics liens. For example, if a contractor is not paid for work performed on a property, they may file a mechanics lien. Similarly, unpaid taxes or court judgments can result in liens being placed against the property. Impact of liens on transactions. Liens can significantly impact a real estate transaction. In most cases, a property cannot be sold or refinanced until all liens are satisfied. Lenders will not approve financing on a property with unresolved liens because they represent competing claims to the property. This ties directly back to earlier sections on title and escrow. One of the primary roles of escrow and title companies is to identify and clear liens before closing. In some situations, liens can even force the sale of a property to satisfy the debt. Bringing it all together. At this stage, the concept of property ownership has come full circle. We began with transactions and transfers, moved through foreclosure and distressed property scenarios, explored encumbrances and easements, and now understand how ownership can be temporarily shared, legally challenged, or financially burdened. Licenses show how property use can be granted and revoked. Adverse possession shows how ownership can be lost through inaction. Liens show how financial obligations can attach to and impact property rights. Together, these concepts reinforce one of the most important principles in real estate. Ownership is not absolute. It is a bundle of rights that must be actively protected, clearly documented, and carefully managed. As we move into the next section, we will continue expanding on these concepts by examining additional legal and regulatory factors that influence property ownership, transfer, and risk. Online discussion. Why is a license considered less permanent than an easement? Answer: because a license can be revoked at any time and does not create a lasting interest in the land. How can adverse possession impact a property owner? Answer: it can result in the loss of ownership if someone occupies the property openly and continuously for a legally defined period. Why must liens be resolved before closing a transaction? Answer: because liens represent financial claims against the property and can prevent a clear title from being transferred.